Welcome to r/best of Redditor updates, where OP walks in on her husband railing her mother, and that's not even the weirdest thing that happens in that story. Our next Reddit post comes from r/relationships. I was with my dickhead ex-boyfriend for nearly 5 years. We met in college and hit it off. Never had a fight or anything of that nature. I'm fairly level-headed and always seek communication first, which worked out really well in our favor. When we finished up our courses, I got a job close to my family and moved with my boyfriend in tow. He eventually got a good job too, and everything seemed perfect. Then, 3 years ago, and just after we'd become engaged, which was his idea by the way, I came home early one day to find him doing it with my mom. Trust me when I say that if I could have burned the eyes out of my head at that point, I would have. I literally had nightmares for months after seeing him take her doggy style over the kitchen table. Long story short, I threw the engagement ring at him, pushed my crying mother away from me, and took off. I obviously told my father straight away, who wasn't surprised, to my horror. Apparently, they'd been talking about opening their relationship for a while and had just done so. She'd never told him she'd intended on partnering with my boyfriend. He actually said that maybe I needed to really think whether monogamy was really the right way and what harm was there really in my mom having a little fun with my boyfriend. You have to understand at this point that my dad gets into these phases where he gets completely absorbed into lifestyles he reads about and thinks they suit him better. Such as when we were young, he went through a phase where he felt that the hunter-gatherer lifestyle is the right way, and he got us all learning to hunt. As hard as that was to stomach my father saying that to me, I knew that what happens with them is their own business. My dad had basically approved my mother's betrayal of me. This is where I really lucked out. I'd been the only one of us saving for a house, and I had a tidy sum of money locked up in my account. So I left, took off, no note, no message, handed in my notice at my job, rang my landlord, and paid whatever it took to free me from the lease. I left all the furnishings and stuff I owned because I just didn't care. I packed a bag of clothes and essentials, got into my car, and went. I had a blast. I crossed the states in the best road trip I've ever had all by myself. I eventually found another job on the West Coast, and I've worked it ever since. I met my husband, had a really small wedding, as neither of us are big on those sorts of things, and now have a beautiful 3-month-old son after a pretty hard pregnancy. In all that time, I only kept in touch with my sisters. They attended my wedding secretly, as I didn't want my parents knowing anything about my life, as they would only try to come to and ruin it all. My sisters were the first to hear of my pregnancy, etc. My husband knows everything, by the way, just in case you're wondering. The problem I'm facing is that my younger sister confessed to my parents everything. Where I am, the fact that I'm married, and that I have a baby. I have not been able to get in touch with my sister since I started getting letters and phone calls from my parents. It's all one big giant guilt trip. They whine about how much they miss me, how they've missed such important events in my life, and how they want to know their first grandchild. Not an hour ago, I got a voice message from my ex-boyfriend who was blubbering a sob story over how he thought I was dead or something. About how devastated he was and still is that I left him. And now to find out that I've moved on. My husband is a star. He basically just said that whatever I decide, he'll stand behind me 100%. The real issue is that my resolve is starting to crack. I look at my son and think that maybe he should know his grandparents. I mean, he has wonderful grandparents in my in-laws, but surely he should know my own family too. I just need advice here. Should I stay strong, or are they right in that I shouldn't have done what I did? Then, 6 weeks later, OP posted an update. My younger sister and I talked. To be honest, it was not a pleasant conversation. I was essentially berated for not being forgiving enough, that family is family, and that I was cheating our parents. That's an interesting word choice. I was cheating our parents from being part of my life and that of my son's. I basically told her to F off and hung up the phone. I cried for a long time. I hadn't seen this coming at all, and it really hurt. almost as bad as when this had all exploded the first time. What really has me confused is what had happened to her that had created this huge swing in opinion that suddenly I'm the bad guy for wanting a normal life without my parents ruining it again. Even now, I have no idea what happened, only that she woke up one day and now thinks I'm the worst person in the world. So after that was where my husband really stood up. He bundled me and the small one into a car and drove us all up to his parents' place for a few days. He called them and explained everything that was happening, and his mother insisted that we get away from the house for a bit to have a break away from it all. My husband, while I was relaxing and unknowing of what he was up to, called my other sister and got her up to speed on what was going on. From what I can tell, since it's been an all-out war between them and my parents. My older sister, Becca, barged over that very night and apparently read the riot act to our younger sister, Michelle. It got pretty heated, from what I can tell. And since then, Becca has cut Michelle off completely, which is a huge problem for Michelle as Becca helped fund her way through college. After that fight, Becca got into her car and drove all the way back to our parents' house, and there it got even messier. She rang after to tell my husband that our parents had actually been packing suitcases when she arrived. They'd bought plane tickets to our state and planned on leaving midway during that week. Becca blew up. The fight was pretty brutal, I'm sure. Becca is razor sharp with things, and then she left. She couldn't convince them to not travel over to me. She left with what details she could get of their flight times. My husband decided that he wouldn't tell me just yet. My freakout over them potentially turning up had convinced him that I needed to be as uninvolved in this as possible. Instead, he left me at his parents' while he went back to our house to wait for them to arrive. When they did arrive, my husband apparently answered the door and told them to get off his property. My father and him had a blazing argument, which ended when my dad tried to break down the door, which my husband used as prime motivation to call the police. When the cops arrived, my father tried to claim that my husband was keeping me caged up like a prisoner and not allowing me to see my family. I know this because I received a phone call and visit from the I'm sorry, this story's ridiculous. I received a phone call and a visit from the local police department in his parents' area to follow up on the claim. They also alerted me to the fact that they had followed up on the threat and had actually crossed the country to reach me. So my parents have gone back east as they couldn't get anywhere near me or my baby, but since then, the trouble hasn't stopped. We've gotten at least 8 notices from their lawyers in regards to getting access to our son. Our own lawyer told us that it was incredibly unlikely that they'll get anything. We've also had 4 visits from Child Protective Services and the police because of anonymous calls about things from our parenting to me being a battered wife. Our lawyer thinks that these are orchestrated so that if the case goes to court, they can point to a record. And chalk this one down to me being paranoid. I just have this really bad gut feeling that they hired a private investigator or something. Becca is telling me to hold the line. She's going through something similar herself. She's had 5 police visits in the last month, one of which was apparently over an anonymous call that she was running a brothel. I guess we've really pushed our parents to the edge that they'd rather ruin our lives than leave us alone. As to everything else, we're planning on moving. Not sure when or where yet, but even my husband is growing tired of the drama. We're still in the planning stages and trying to find out every possible way of making sure that if we do move, we can legally prevent them from finding out. It's all just so damn tiring. What's sadder is that I know this isn't really about me. It's about my baby and my parents trying to exert some sort of control over his life and mine. It just feels like one of those situations where the only possible solution is to change your name and your baby's name and move to a different country. Our next Reddit post comes from r/relationship advice. My girlfriend inherited a strip club from her dad when he died 8 years ago. He let it become a dump, but she poured her entire inheritance and took out some loans to revamp them both. It is now a popular, well-managed establishment. She makes a decent life, but I have issues and I want her to sell it before I'll even think of proposing. I don't think the adult industry is a positive place for anyone. I can't tell my strict Catholic parents what she does for a living. She's put a lot of time into the club. Saturday, we had plans to go see Shazam and have dinner. She got called that a bartender's kid is sick, and she ended up working until 4 a.m. due to no coverage. This is a regular occurrence in some capacity. She just shrugs at me and tells me it's part of being an active owner of a successful business. She ends up working until 4 a.m. at least 4 times a week. She's adamant that she'll not sell. I need some good points as to why she should. Points involving children will not work, as she doesn't want children. Then, the next day, OP posted an update. I decided to tell her that the sexual side of the adult store and the club bothered me, and that I wanted her to sell them before I'd propose. I made breakfast before she left to go over to the store for the day. She dumped me on the spot. She said she enjoys her work, loves the adult industry, and has no plans on selling, ever. She said that she's worked too hard and too long for that sort of BS. We don't live together, so we walked through her apartment to gather my things. We gave each other's keys back. She's already blocked me on Facebook. Then, 1 month later, OP posted an update. I ended up telling my parents what she did for a living, and they were shockingly cool with it. My dad said that he even had his suspicions because he knew her dad growing up and figured it out through the last name. Her dad was well known in town. I went to the club last week to try to talk to her, but she was covering for a bartender again. She was dressed up as Suicide Squad Harley Quinn. And she did that gun-cocking motion with a bat like Harley did in the movie while I was across the room heading towards the bar. Next thing I know, I was being escorted out by the bouncers. She blocked me completely on everything. I was thinking of sending her a snail mail letter, but does that even work? I'm not even sure what I would say. OP, you're you're on Reddit asking for advice on how to get in contact with a woman who works in a strip club, protected by bouncers. The answer is you don't. You accept the fact that you do not have a relationship and you move on, my friend. It's very weird that you were okay with it when you dated her for years and years and years, but you aren't okay with it suddenly for marriage. You should have just never dated her to begin with, OP. You're kind of a weird dude. Move on, date someone else. I could totally understand OP's case if, he dated this girl for 5 years or whatever, and then suddenly her dad died, and now next thing you know, she owns a strip club. Then I could, okay, yeah, you gotta sell the strip club or I don't want to be in a relationship with you. I think that's totally justified. But OP is being a little dumb here. Our next Reddit post comes from r/legal advice. I'm the owner of a 2-story house. I'd gone to Hawaii last week for 1 week vacation with my wife. No one was at my home, and it wasn't feasible for us to take dogs with us. So I gave my house keys to a good friend of mine and asked him to take care of my 2 dogs. This would involve feeding them, changing their water, and taking them on 1-hour walks daily. So his girlfriend was in town, and she had no place to stay. My friend lives in a 1-bedroom condo with 2 other roommates. So he messaged me and asked me if I would allow his girlfriend to stay at my home for just 1 night. I agreed because it was just a matter of 1 night. Now, yesterday I came back and found out that his girlfriend has made dwelling in the upper floor of my house. She's been staying here for 4 days. I asked her to stay immediately, but she and my friend are insisting to let her stay 1 more week because she's in search of a job in LA. I called police. They came and said this would be a civil matter, and I have to go through the eviction process. So I'm here with an unwanted stranger in the upper floor, and a butthole friend who broke a promise and a pissed off wife. What do I do, guys? Can I change her locks and throw her stuff out when she's away? Cut the electricity to the upper floor? Then, the next day, OP posted an update. So after reading all the advice here and carefully discussing this matter with my cousin, we made a nasty plan. Yesterday night, that squatter girl went outside to grab some dinner with her boyfriend. Me and my cousin carefully packed all of her stuff in her 3 bags, left it on our front porch, and locked ourselves in the house. We also watched her stuff from the window to make sure no one stole it. Our wait was over after 2 hours when the girl returned. She figured it out and started pounding at our door, yelling loudly to open the door. Typical squatter drama. We told her to F off and we would not open the door. So finally, after 30 minutes of constant drama, she dared to call the cops. I was nervous how it would turn out. The cops arrived. Fortunately, these were different ones from the previous night. First, they listened to her side. Then they came to me. I explicitly told them that I was the sole owner of the house and never allowed the girl to stay more than one night. She was not only trespassing, but also living in my house legally without my permission. This B word kept saying I'd given permission to stay there indefinitely, and now I was kicking her out. The officer asked, "Do you have any proof of that?" She claimed she had some message which accidentally got deleted. Now, the best part. The officer then asked her for ID. She gave ID. The officer verified it over radio. Suddenly, they told him that this B word had a failure to appear warrant for a months-old shoplifting case. This stupid lady was arrested immediately. Her stuff was sent to a friend's house. The officer said that I don't need to worry and they'll take care of her. I do not require any further action. So finally, I'm relieved from that squatter and the B word is behind bars. What a justice boner. I don't know much about squatters, so it's possible the thing I'm suggesting here is extremely illegal. Do not try it. But I would have to imagine if you've got someone in your house and the cops are like, hey, we don't care. Couldn't you just pick that person up and drag them outside and deposit them onto your front lawn and then run inside and lock the door behind you? I mean, what can they do? They can maybe claim assault, but you didn't really hurt them. You just picked them up and dragged them out. They could say they live there, but I mean, without a lease, where's that going to go? It just sort of feels to me like if someone's breaking the law getting into your house, can't you just kind of break the law to get them out of your house too? That was r/best of Redditor updates. And if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.